The ship was dying. Captain Yuna knew this the moment she opened her eyes and saw the emergency lights flashing red across the ceiling of her quarters. She had commanded the Starward Hope for 60 years, and she had never seen it hurt this badly. She ran to the bridge, her long blue robes flowing behind her. The Vellani were a tall species, graceful and ancient. They had kept peace in the galaxy for 10,000 years, but peace meant nothing when your ship was burning in the cold dark of space. The bridge was chaos. Smoke filled the air. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Her crew moved quickly, trying to save what they could save. First Officer Taiho stood at the center, shouting orders. His silver skin was covered in ash, and his 4 eyes were wide with fear he was trying to hide. "Report," Yuna said. Her voice was calm. A captain must always be calm. Taiho turned to her. "The Dominion ambush destroyed our main engines. Life support is failing. We have maybe 6 days before we run out of air. Communications are limited to short range only. We cannot call for help." Yuna felt her heart grow cold. The Dominion. Those brutal conquerors had been pushing into Coalition space for years. Now they had caught her ship alone and far from home. "How many did we lose?" 212, Taiho said quietly. 3,000 crew remain. Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. 212 souls gone, families who would never see their loved ones again. She would mourn later. Now she had to save the living. Chief Engineer Mireille rushed onto the bridge. She was young for a Vellani, only 80 years old. Her uniform was torn and her hands were burned. But her eyes were bright with something that looked almost like hope. "Captain, I found something," Mireille said. "There is a planet nearby. It is sending radio signals. Someone lives there." Taiho pulled up the star charts. His face changed when he saw the data. "No, absolutely not. This is Earth. It is classified as a pre-contact civilization. They are primitives. They still fight wars over land and religion. We are forbidden to contact them." "Forbidden by who?" Yuna asked. "By coalition law, by 17 different protocols. These humans have not even achieved faster than light travel. They cannot help us. Contacting them would contaminate their natural development." Mirai stepped forward. "With respect, sir, we will all be dead in 6 days. I do not think natural development matters much when we are corpses." Taiho's 4 eyes narrowed. "You speak out of turn, engineer." "She speaks truth," Yuna said. She walked to the communication console and looked at the blue and green planets spinning slowly on the screen. Such a small world, such a young species. The record said they had only discovered electricity 200 years ago. They were babies compared to the Vellani, but babies or not, they were her only chance. "Open a channel," Yuna ordered. "Use the universal translator. Send our standard distress signal." Taiho grabbed her arm. "Captain, please, think about what you are doing. We will face severe punishment for this. First contact with a primitive species is the only way to save 3,000 lives." Yuna pulled her arm free. "I will accept whatever punishment comes. Send the signal." The communication officer, a young male named Bora, activated the transmission. The distress signal went out into the void, carrying their desperate plea in every language the translator knew. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Yuna stood completely still, watching the screen. She did not allow herself to hope. Hope was dangerous when death was so close. Then the console beeped. Bora looked up, his face pale. "We are receiving a response. It is coming from orbit around Earth." "Orbit?" Taiho moved closer. "That is impossible. The records say they have no orbital infrastructure." The message played through the bridge speakers. It was a voice unlike any Yuna had ever heard. Deep and confident, speaking in a language of hard sounds and rolling rhythms. The translator converted it a moment later. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth Orbital Command. We have received your distress signal. Help is on the way. Please hold your position and prepare to receive assistance. Estimated arrival time is 46 hours. Earth orbital command out." Silence fell across the bridge. Mireille was the first to speak. "Earth orbital command? They have orbital command?" Taiho pulled up the classification files on humans. His hands were shaking slightly. "This makes no sense. According to Coalition records, humans achieved their first successful spaceflight only 70 years ago. They should be decades away from orbital infrastructure, centuries away from faster-than-light travel." "Maybe our records are wrong," Yuna said softly. "Coalition records are never wrong. Then explain what we just heard." Taiho had no answer. He simply stared at the screen showing Earth, as if seeing it for the first time. The small blue planet suddenly seemed much more significant. Over the next 46 hours, the crew of the Starward Hope did what they could to survive. They sealed damaged sections. They rationed air and water. They treated the wounded and honored the dead. And they waited. Yuna spent much of that time in her quarters, reading everything the Coalition database had on humans. It was not much. A young species, violent and emotional, brilliant in short bursts but self-destructive in the long term. They had nearly wiped themselves out several times with wars and environmental damage. The Coalition had decided they were not ready for contact. They needed another few centuries to mature. But something had changed. Somehow, while the galaxy watched and waited, these primitive humans had built ships that could reach the stars. On the 46th hour, Mireille called from the bridge. Her voice was strange, excited, and frightened at the same time. "Captain, you need to see this." Yuna arrived on the bridge just as space itself seemed to tear open. A corridor of twisted light appeared before them, something that should have been impossible for any species younger than the Villani. And from that corridor came ships. Not one ship, not two. 12 vessels emerged from the warp corridor, led by 3 massive carriers that dwarfed even the Starward Hope. They were not elegant like Villani ships. They were rough and industrial, covered in weapons and armor plating. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. Taiho whispered something that might have been a prayer in the old Villani language. Yuna simply watched as the human fleet moved into position around her wounded ship. She had asked for help from primitives. Instead, something else entirely had answered. She was not sure yet if that was good or terrifying. Perhaps it was both. The first human Yuna ever met was not what she expected. Admiral Dongwu Park was a small man by human standards. His hair was gray and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and his smile was warm as he stepped off the shuttle onto the damaged deck of the Starward Hope. He wore a simple uniform with many medals on his chest. Behind him came a team of humans in different clothes. Some wore engineering suits. Others wore white medical coats. All of them carried boxes of equipment and moved with purpose. "Captain Yuna, I presume," the Admiral said. His translator was a small device attached to his collar. It worked almost as well as Villani technology. "I am Admiral Dongwu Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. We came as fast as we could." Yuna bowed in the Villani way. "Admiral Park, you have our deepest gratitude, but I must admit some confusion. Our records indicated your species had not yet developed interstellar travel." Admiral Park's smile widened. "Yes, we know what your records say. We have been reading your Coalition broadcasts for about 50 years now. Very educational." He looked around at the damaged corridor, at the flickering lights and scorched walls. "But we can discuss history later. Right now, your ship needs help." "May my people begin work?" Yuna nodded. "Of course. Our chief engineer can show your people the damaged areas." Admiral Park gestured to a woman with short black hair and kind eyes. "This is Dr. Unji Kang. She leads our humanitarian response team. She will help your wounded." Then he pointed to a tall man with broad shoulders and a gentle face. Sergeant Hyun-woo Baek and his team will provide security, just in case the Dominion comes back. Finally, he indicated a young woman with a confident stance. Lieutenant Jisoo Han is our fighter pilot squadron leader. Her people are already patrolling the area. The humans spread through the ship like water flowing into cracks. Within hours, they had set up medical stations, begun repairs, and established supply lines from their carrier ships. Yuna watched in amazement as human engineers tore into systems that Vellani technology had declared beyond saving. Mirai worked alongside a human engineer named Junho. She had expected to teach the primitive visitors how Vellani systems worked. Instead, she found herself learning. "Why are you replacing this entire power converter?" she asked as Junho pulled out a component she had planned to repair. "It still functions at 60% efficiency." Junho laughed. It was a strange sound, very human. 60%? That is terrible. Here, look. He pulled a device from his toolkit. It was smaller than the Vellani converter, but somehow felt heavier in her hands. "Human engineering. We built this last week. It will give you 98% efficiency and also filter the radiation that your old system was leaking." Mirai stared at the device. "You built this in a week?" "We had some free time." All across the ship, similar scenes played out. Human engineers did not just repair damaged systems. They improved them. They replaced weapons with stronger versions. They upgraded shields with technology that Mirai did not fully understand. When she asked why they were doing so much more than requested, Junho just shrugged. "If a job is worth doing, it is worth doing right. That is what my grandmother always said." In the medical bay, Dr. Kang worked miracles. Vellani biology was completely unknown to her, but she learned fast. Within hours, she had figured out their basic anatomy and began treating wounds that Vellani doctors had given up on. She also introduced them to coffee. Mirai took her first sip from the strange dark liquid and felt her entire body wake up. Her 4 eyes went wide. Her heart beat faster. Her mind felt clearer than it had in days. "What is this?" she gasped. Dr. Kang smiled. "Coffee, the heart of human civilization. We have conquered stars, built empires, and survived countless wars, all because of coffee. I need more of this. Everyone does." While the repairs continued, Taiho finally cornered Admiral Park in the ship's observation deck. The first officer had many questions, and he was not known for his patience. "Why did you hide?" Taiho demanded. "Why did your species pretend to be primitive while secretly building a war fleet?" Admiral Park did not seem bothered by the harsh tone. He simply looked out at the stars, holding his own cup of coffee. "We did not pretend anything. We simply chose not to announce ourselves." "The same thing." "Not really." The Admiral turned to face him. 50 years ago, we detected coalition signals for the first time. We learned we were not alone, that there was a whole galaxy of civilizations out there. It was the greatest discovery in human history." "Then why hide?" "Because we also learned other things. We learned about the Dominion and their conquests. We learned about species that announced themselves too early and were enslaved or destroyed. We learned that the galaxy is not a safe place for the weak." Admiral Park's smile faded for the first time. "So we decided to become strong first, then say hello." Taiho felt cold. "You built your entire fleet in secret. For 50 years. Just waiting." "Preparing," the Admiral corrected. "We hoped we would never need to fight. We hoped the galaxy would be peaceful, but hope is not a strategy. Preparation is a strategy." "Your species frightens me," Taiho admitted. "Good. That means you are paying attention." Later that day, Lieutenant Jisoo burst onto the bridge with urgent news. She had been monitoring Dominion communications, using equipment far more advanced than anything the Coalition possessed. "The attack on your ship was not random," she reported. The Dominion is hunting coalition vessels throughout this sector. They are testing your defenses before a major invasion. Captain Yuna felt her blood turn cold. Are you certain? Completely certain. We have intercepted their orders. They plan to strike Coalition Station Prime within 2 months. The bridge fell silent. Coalition Station Prime was the heart of galactic civilization. If it fell, the entire coalition would collapse. Admiral Park stood slowly from where he had been observing. The easy smile was completely gone now. His eyes had turned cold and hard, like steel frozen in deep space. Captain Yuna, he said quietly, I think it is time we visited your coalition leaders. Earth has some things to discuss with them. What kind of things? The Admiral looked out at his fleet, at the 12 warships that had answered a simple call for help. The kind of things that involved more ships than this. Many more. Yuna realized then that she had made a mistake in her earlier thinking. Humans were not babies at all. They were something else entirely. Something that had been watching and waiting for this exact moment. Coalition Station Prime was the largest structure in the known galaxy. It floated in the heart of civilized space, a massive ring of metal and light that housed the governments of 100 different species. Here, the great decisions were made. Here, the fate of worlds was decided. And here, for the first time in history, human ships had come. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the Starward Hope as they approached the station. Her ship looked different now. The human engineers had worked on it for 3 weeks during the journey. New weapon systems, new shields, new engines that hummed with power she had never felt before. Her ship had left Earth space damaged and dying. It arrived at Coalition Prime stronger than it had ever been, but even more impressive was the fleet around them. Admiral Park's 12 warships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls almost invisible against the stars. Coalition sensors had trouble tracking them. When the station's defense commander demanded identification, it took him several attempts to even locate all 12 vessels. They are using stealth technology, Taiho said quietly. Technology that our records say they should not have for another 300 years. Their records were wrong about many things, Yuna replied. The human delegation consisted of 3 people. Admiral Park would handle military matters. A woman named Ambassador Seojin Yoon would speak for Earth's government, and a quiet man named General Taewon Choi stood behind them both, saying nothing but watching everything. Ambassador Yoon was perhaps the most impressive of the 3. She was elegant and beautiful, dressed in clothes that looked simple but probably cost more than most starships. Her words were smooth and careful, but her eyes were sharp like knives, cutting through every lie and deception. The Coalition Council chamber was a vast, circular room. Representatives from 100 species sat in rising rows around a central platform. At the highest point sat High Chancellor Voss, an ancient being whose species had been old when the stars were young. You bring outsiders to this sacred place, Voss said. His voice echoed through the chamber. Outsiders who were classified as primitives. Outsiders who hid their true nature from our observers. Ambassador Yoon stepped forward onto the central platform. She bowed respectfully, then raised her head high. High Chancellor, honored representatives. I am Ambassador Seojin Yoon, speaking for the United Earth Government. We thank you for receiving us. We did not receive you, a reptilian delegate hissed. You forced your way here with warships. We escorted a damaged coalition vessel home, Ambassador Yoon replied smoothly. The warships were for protection. Surely you cannot object to protection, given what attacked the Starward Hope. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Everyone knew about the Dominion ambush. The news had traveled fast. The question remains, Chancellor Voss said. Your species deceived galactic observers for decades. You developed forbidden weapons technology in secret. You hid your true capabilities. Why should we trust you now? Ambassador Yoon smiled. It was not a warm smile. With respect, Chancellor, we never deceived anyone. Your observers watched our planet from orbit. They saw what they expected to see. They never thought to look deeper. She paused. Is it deception if someone fails to look? You play word games. I speak truth. Earth had every right to develop in secret. Your own laws say that pre-contact civilizations should be left alone. You left us alone. We simply used that time wisely. A delegate from the Merchant Coalition stood up. He was a short, round being with many tentacles. And now you want something. You want alliance. You want trade. You want access to our technology and our markets. Yes, Ambassador Yoon admitted. We want all of those things, but we also offer something in return. What could primitives possibly offer us? General Taewon finally moved. He walked to the center platform and activated a small device in his hand. A hologram appeared above them all, showing a star map of Coalition space. Red dots marked Dominion fleet positions. There were many red dots. This is the current Dominion deployment, General Taewon said. His voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. 40 warships moving toward Coalition Prime, the largest invasion force in a century. They will arrive in approximately 6 weeks. Panic erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted questions and demands. Chancellor Voss raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes for order to return. How do you know this? The Chancellor demanded. We intercepted their communications. We have been monitoring the Dominion since we first detected their signals 30 years ago. General Taewon changed the display. Now it showed a different map. This one was covered in blue dots, thousands of them. This is Earth's defensive capability. Hidden shipyards, automated weapons platforms, a fleet of over 200 warships. The chamber went completely silent. 200? A delegate whispered. Currently, Admiral Park said, stepping forward. We are building more. We have been building for 30 years. We hoped we would never need to use them. His easy smile appeared again, but there was steel behind it now. We hoped wrong. Captain Yuna watched the council members. She saw fear in their eyes. Fear of the Dominion? Yes. But also fear of these humans who had hidden an entire war fleet in the shadows of their single small planet. Chancellor Voss spoke slowly. What exactly are you proposing? Ambassador Yoon returned to the center. Full alliance. Earth joins the coalition as an equal member with a permanent council seat. In exchange, we provide military support against the Dominion. We share defensive technology. We help you win this war. And if we refuse? Then we return home and watch from a distance as the Dominion conquers you one by one. Ambassador Yoon's voice was hard now. We do not need the coalition, Chancellor. We survived alone for 50 years. We can survive alone for 50 more, but we would prefer to make friends. We would prefer to help. Why? The reptilian delegate demanded. Why do you care about species you have never met? Admiral Park answered. Because we heard a distress call. Because someone needed help. Because that is who we are. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. Humanity has done terrible things in its history. We have fought wars and caused suffering. But we have also always had people who could not ignore someone in need. We answered Captain Yuna's call because it was right. We offer this alliance because it is right. Chancellor Voss was silent for a long moment. Finally, he leaned forward. The Council will deliberate. You will have our answer within 1 day. Ambassador Yoon nodded. We understand. But, Chancellor, I would recommend deciding quickly. She gestured to the hologram showing Dominion positions. The enemy will not wait for your politics. As the human delegation left the chamber, Yuna fell into step beside Admiral Park. That was dangerous, she said, threatening to abandon them. Park's smile returned. I did not threaten anything. I simply told the truth. Humans have learned that sometimes truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. Yuna looked back at the council chamber where delegates were already arguing furiously. What happens now? Now we wait, and we prepare. Admiral Park's eyes went cold again. Because whether the council agrees or not, the Dominion is coming, and Earth always keeps its promises, one way or another. The edge of Coalition space had never seen so many ships. Human carriers floated alongside Villani cruisers. Earth destroyers took positions next to alien frigates. For the first time in history, two civilizations prepared to fight as one. The Coalition Council had taken only 6 hours to agree to the alliance. Fear was a powerful motivator. Now, 2 days before the Dominion fleet was expected to arrive, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Soul's Pride. Around him, officers from both species worked together with surprising smoothness. Humans adapted fast. It was one of their many talents. "Admiral," Lieutenant Jisoo said from her station, "all fighter squadrons report ready. We have 200 fighters deployed in defensive patterns." "Coalition forces report ready as well," Taeho added. The Villani first officer had requested transfer to the human flagship. He said he wanted to understand human tactics. Yuna suspected he simply could not look away from what was happening. Admiral Park nodded. "Good. What about our surprise?" General Taewon answered from across the bridge. "Second Fleet is in position behind the gas giant. Complete sensor blackout confirmed. The Dominion will not see them until we want them to." The secret fleet consisted of 80 additional warships. They had arrived through hidden warp corridors just days ago. Earth had not brought 200 ships to this fight. They had brought nearly 300. But the Dominion would only see what Earth wanted them to see. On the Starboard Hope, Captain Yuna watched her crew prepare for battle. Her ship had been transformed by human engineers. Weapons that once fired weak energy bolts now launched devastating plasma charges. Shields that once flickered under stress now held firm against the strongest attacks. Her ship had been reborn. Mirai stood at the engineering station, making final adjustments with Junho beside her. The human engineer had stayed on board to help. Mirai had asked him why. "Because you serve good coffee now," he had joked. But she knew the real reason. Humans did not abandon their friends. It was both their greatest strength and their most dangerous weakness. In the fighter bays, Lieutenant Jisoo checked her ship one last time. She had painted a symbol on its nose, a traditional Korean design that her grandmother had taught her. It meant courage in the face of certain death. Sergeant Hyunwoo gathered his Marines in the cargo hold. They would defend Coalition Station Prime if ground forces landed. 200 humans against whatever the Dominion sent. The odds were terrible. Hyunwoo's smile never wavered. "Remember your training," he told them. "Fight smart. Watch each other's backs. And if you see a chance to be a hero, take it. That is what we are here for." The waiting was the hardest part. Hours passed slowly. People checked their weapons. They wrote messages home. They prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Then, at exactly the predicted time, space tore open. Dominion warships poured through the warp corridor like a swarm of angry insects. 40 vessels, each one bristling with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their power. They had conquered a dozen species. They expected this battle to be easy. The Dominion commander broadcast across all channels. His voice was cold and cruel. "Coalition forces. This is Warlord Draken of the Dominion 7th Fleet. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to serve. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Admiral Park smiled and activated his own communicator. "Warlord Draken. This is Admiral Dongwoo Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. You attacked a ship under our protection. You threatened our friends. We have come to explain why that was a mistake." Drakon's laugh was ugly. "Earth? The primitive world? We know about you, little humans. You hide behind your coalition allies because you are weak." Perhaps. Would you like to test that theory? The battle began. Human tactics were unlike anything the Dominion had ever faced. Coalition species fought in formation, following predictable patterns that enemy computers could analyze and counter. Humans fought like chaos given form. Lieutenant Jasoo led her fighter squadron directly into the heart of the Dominion fleet. It was suicide by any logical calculation. But Jasoo was not thinking about logic. She was thinking about the burning anger in her chest, the fierce joy of combat, the desperate need to protect the people behind her. Her fighters danced between enemy ships, too fast and too unpredictable for targeting systems to lock on. They struck at weak points. They drew fire away from the larger vessels. They died in explosions of light, and their deaths meant something because each one bought time for others. The main fleet engaged at medium range. Human weapons were brutal, designed not for elegant combat, but for maximum destruction. Plasma cannons tore through Dominion shields. Missile swarms overwhelmed point defense systems. The enemy ships were tough, but they were not ready for this kind of violence. On the Starward Hope, Mireille pushed the upgraded systems beyond their rated capacity. Alarms screamed warnings. Junho laughed beside her. "I designed those limits conservative," he said. "Push harder." She did. The ship's weapons fired faster than any Vellani vessel had ever fired. Enemy fighters exploded around them. A Dominion destroyer tried to target them and received 3 direct hits before it could shoot once. Warlord Dracon watched his fleet struggle and felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. "All ships, focus fire on the human flagship," he ordered. "Kill their admiral." 12 Dominion vessels turned toward Sol's Pride. Their combined fire would destroy any ship in the galaxy. Admiral Park did not flinch. "Now, General." Behind the gas giant, 80 human warships activated their engines and surged forward. The Dominion sensors screamed warnings as the hidden fleet appeared from nowhere. 80 fresh warships joining a battle where the enemy had already committed everything. It was a trap, a perfect, devastating trap. The battle became a slaughter. Caught between 2 human fleets, the Dominion formation shattered. Ships tried to retreat and were cut down. Ships tried to fight and were overwhelmed. Within an hour, 30 Dominion vessels had been destroyed or disabled. Warlord Draken's flagship tried to run. Its engines flared as it turned toward the warp corridor. Admiral Park's voice echoed across space, calm and final. "Warlord Draken, you came to conquer. You came to enslave. You came to destroy everything these people have built." A pause. "There is nowhere in this galaxy you can run where we will not find you." Sol's Pride fired its main cannon. The shot crossed thousands of kilometers in an instant. It struck the Dominion flagship directly in its engines. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. When the light faded, only scattered debris remained. The surviving Dominion ships surrendered. The battle was over in less than 3 hours. The greatest invasion force in Dominion history had been completely destroyed. On the bridge of Sol's Pride, Taiho stared at the sensor display showing the battlefield. Wreckage from 40 enemy ships floated among the stars. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our analysts predicted we would lose half our fleet even with human support." Admiral Park sat down heavily in his chair. The battle had taken something from him. It always did. "Your analysts did not account for human factors." "What human factors?" The Admiral looked at him with tired eyes. "We do not fight to win, First Officer. We fight because we cannot accept losing. There is a difference. The Dominion fought for conquest. We fought for the people behind us. That makes us very hard to beat." Taiho thought about that for a long moment. Then he bowed in the Vellani way, deep and respectful. "I am beginning to understand," he said quietly, "why your species frightens me." Admiral Park's smile returned, weary but genuine. We frighten ourselves sometimes, but today was a good day. The Dominion will think twice before attacking Coalition space again. And if they do attack again, then we will be here. That is our promise. Taiho believed him. For the first time since meeting humans, he was glad they were on his side. 1 month after the battle, Coalition Station Prime had transformed. Human ships filled the docking bays. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians. Human coffee shops had opened on 3 different decks, and they were always crowded. The great ceremony took place in the Coalition Council chamber. Every seat was filled. Representatives from 100 species watched as Ambassador Seojin Yoon stepped onto the central platform for the final time as a visitor. High Chancellor Voss rose from his ancient seat. His voice echoed through the chamber with new warmth. On this day, we welcome Earth into the coalition of civilized worlds. No longer observers, no longer outsiders. Full members with all rights and responsibilities, the humans have proven themselves not just as warriors, but as friends. Ambassador Yoon bowed deeply. The people of Earth are honored by this welcome. We have spent 50 years watching from the shadows, preparing for a day we hoped would never come. Now that day has passed, and we stand in the light together. We pledge our strength to the coalition. We pledge our technology, our resources, and our lives. She paused, looking around the chamber. But more than that, we pledge our friendship, because that is what truly matters. Ships can be destroyed, technology can be stolen, but friendship endures, trust endures, and humanity values nothing more than the bonds we make with others. The chamber erupted in applause. It was a strange sound. Dozens of different species showing approval in their own ways, clapping, stamping, clicking, singing. But the meaning was clear. Earth was home now. After the ceremony, there were celebrations across the station, but the heroes of the battle had their own gathering in a small observation lounge with a view of the stars. Captain Yuna had been promoted to Fleet Admiral. Her new rank insignia glittered on her robes as she raised a glass of human wine. Around her sat the people who had become her family over the past months. Admiral Park sat in a comfortable chair, finally looking relaxed. He had announced his retirement that morning. 30 years of preparing for war had earned him the right to rest. "What will you do now?" Yuna asked him. "Teach, I think. The Coalition Military Academy has offered me a position. I will train the next generation." His smile grew wistful. "I am tired of fighting. Let the young ones take over." Dr. Kang had established the first interspecies medical exchange program. Villani doctors would study at human hospitals. Human doctors would learn from alien healing traditions. She sat with Mirai, the two of them already deep in discussion about biological research. "Human medicine is crude but effective," Kang was saying. "We cut things open and put them back together. Very brutal, very practical." Mirai nodded eagerly. "I want to learn everything. Also, can we discuss coffee production? I believe it should be classified as essential medical equipment." Lieutenant Jisoo had returned to Earth for a hero's welcome, but she had already requested reassignment to the Joint Human-Villani Task Force. She could not imagine going back to normal patrol duties. Not after this. Sergeant Hyunwoo had received promotion to lieutenant. His Marines were now training coalition forces in human ground combat tactics. The aliens found human fighting style terrifying. Hyunwoo took that as a compliment. Junho, the engineer, had accepted a permanent position on the Starward Hope. He claimed it was because the coffee was better. Everyone knew it was because he had fallen in love with a Villani engineer named Sora. Taiho sat apart from the group, watching silently. He had changed more than anyone during these months. The rigid officer who once feared protocol violations had become something else. Something more flexible. Something almost human in his thinking. Yuna noticed him alone and walked over. "You look troubled, old friend." Taiho shook his head slowly. "Not troubled. Thoughtful. I spent my whole life believing that the Coalition had all the answers, that our way was the right way, that species like humans were too young and too chaotic to matter. And now? Now I understand that chaos is just another word for potential. Humans do not follow our rules because they are too busy making their own, and their rules work. He paused. I have requested permanent assignment to human forces. I want to learn how they think. Yuna smiled. They will be lucky to have you. I hope so. They have certainly changed me. Later, as the party wound down, Admiral Park and Yuna found themselves alone by the observation window. Stars stretched before them, countless points of light representing worlds they would never see. May I ask you something? Yuna said. Of course. Why did you help us? Truly. You could have stayed hidden. You could have let the Dominion weaken the Coalition and then emerged to pick up the pieces. That would have been the strategic choice. Park was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Humanity has a complicated history, Admiral. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars, slavery, cruelty beyond imagination. For thousands of years, we hurt each other and called it progress. He sighed. But we have also always had people who could not look away from suffering. People who ran toward fires instead of away from them. People who gave their lives for strangers. He turned to face her. When we heard your distress call, there was never really a choice. Not because of strategy, not because of politics, because helping people in need is who we are. It is the best part of us, the part we are proudest of. His smile returned, warm and genuine. We spent 50 years preparing for war, but we never forgot why we fight in the first place. Yuna felt something shift in her heart. She had lived for over 200 years. She had met countless species and seen wonders beyond description. But she had never met anyone quite like these humans. Your species will change the galaxy, she said. I know. I hope we change it for the better. With people like you leading the way, I believe you will. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Behind them, the sounds of celebration continued. Human and alien voices mixed together, laughing and talking and sharing stories, the beginning of something new. After a while, Park reached into his jacket and pulled out a small container. Coffee, he offered. Yuna laughed. Always. He poured 2 cups from a thermos he apparently carried everywhere. The rich smell filled the air. To new friends, Park said, raising his cup. To new beginnings, Yuna agreed. They drank together as the galaxy turned slowly around them. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was still dangerous. There would be more battles, more challenges. More moments when everything seemed hopeless. But that was all right, because now they faced it together, humans and Vellani, Coalition and Earth. Friends who had found each other across the vast darkness of space, and they had plenty of coffee to keep them going. The stars had never looked brighter.